This is KERA News. I'm Ron Corning.
And I'm Miranda Suarez. We are joined in studio today by local Dallas country musician Joshua Ray Walker, and from his Austin home, filmmaker Bob Ray, talking about their latest documentary for the Dallas International Film Festival called Thank You for Listening.
Yes, Thank You for Listening is the title of one of Josh's songs. And you are the star of this documentary. This is your story, really, and such an important crossroads in your life. What was it like for you when Bob Ray approached you and said, I want to do this film?
Bob Ray and I had a good conversation on my porch over the phone. He was introduced to me by Gene Gallerano, the other director on the film. And Gene and I had met on an airplane flying to Europe. I was going to tour. Gene was going over there to meet his wife for a theater project, I think. And, I was kind of dragging my feet getting back to Gene. I was really busy. And then I got sick and everything ground to a halt. And I reached out and I was like, I want to make something. And it wasn't necessarily a documentary at first, but I knew I wanted to stay busy while I was going through treatment. And met Bob, hit it off right away, and we got to work really quickly after that.
Yeah, so the project wasn't formulated as like, this is a local musician who's been diagnosed with cancer and is dealing with it. Y'all approached Josh before any of that happened. Did the project kind of have to transform because of that?
Oh, completely. So the co-director, Gene Gallerano, he's a producer of various projects. He had met Josh on a plane, like he said, and they talked. And this was before Josh's cancer diagnosis. Um, Gene and I met at South by Southwest 2 years ago in 2024, where I was, as an alum of the fest, I was introducing a National Geographic project that he produced. And we just kind of hit it off. We both had this energy of like, who's that guy? Who's this guy? And festival, there's a lot of energy, everyone's excited, and so he's like, you want to make a movie together? And I was like, yes, of course. And then thinking nothing would come of it. Gene calls me 3 weeks later. He's like, I met this really interesting dude. His name's Joshua Ray Walker. Do you want to co-direct this movie with me? I was like, absolutely. What is it? And he's like, I don't know. What is it? And so we started trying to figure it out. And I've made a few documentary features and narrative features, as well as a bunch of shorts. And I was like, let's just start filming. This story will tell itself. It originally was conceived as a hybrid where we would film Josh's cancer journey, but we would weave in this sort of narrative fictional component that was sort of a representation of the world Josh creates with his characters that he sings about. So it's sort of just template archetypes of characters that we were going to flesh out. But in the meantime, we were going to start filming the documentary component. And so when I was like, I was in already, and I like a challenge. And then I said, okay, Gene, tell me about this guy, Joshua Ray Walker, who I wasn't familiar with. And he says, he's a country musician. And I said, dang, I already agreed to do it. And then I listened to Josh's music. Yeah, just to be clear, there's mainly just a part of the world of country music I'm not fond of, but Josh is well into the part of the country music world that I like, which is like old timey country. But I thought it was gonna, when he said just country, just generic, when he said country, I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to listen to country music for 2 years. This is gonna be bad. But I heard his music, it was beautiful, and it's like, I don't know, it just has this old timey sort of 60s vibe to me, where it's just like cool stories and nice instrumentation. I was like, this is great. I love this. And I'm not a lyric listen tour type person, but I would start to laugh and then I would start to cry and then I would start to laugh again when I hear Josh's music. And I'm like, what the heck is this dude doing? He's cracked some kind of code. And I just knew there was something beautiful and interesting there. We didn't know the journey we were going to take, obviously. In a longitudinal documentary where you're embedded, you don't know where it's going. You just know you have interesting people with interesting potential, and you hope that something wonderful unfolds in front of you, and you catch it, and you're able to recreate it on the screen.
That sounds like the definition of pure filmmaking, right? Let it unfold as it's meant to and be there to capture it. I love how you said that Josh cracked a code, because I feel like you've cracked a code with this film, and that the vulnerability of the moments of Josh's life as he's going through this are so resonant in the film. And I'm wondering, Josh, when you saw your artistry
Mm-hmm.
wrapped in artistry with this film, what that was like for you watching it back.
Um, from the beginning of the project, I was really excited about being able to document this time period in my life because I knew whether it went well or if it went poorly, I was going to want to be able to look back at this time period. And so that was exciting. And then, like, so much of my music is influenced by um, visual art. I mean, and I think in pictures. And so a lot of the songs I'm trying to write, I see as a movie scene anyway. And so I've always wanted to make film. I was excited about the narrative part of the movie we were going to work on. I think that the documentary part was shot very beautifully. And as far as documentaries go, I think it looks really good, which is awesome. And, there's some creative choices that were made to make it just visually more interesting than a straight documentary, which is great. And I got to work on the score and the sound design for the film as well, which is something I've always wanted to do. And so that was huge for me. And so it was really, it's weird. It's surreal to be the subject of a documentary. It's a little embarrassing isn't the word, but it feels very self-indulgent in a way. It's just like the story's about me and I'm on screen and the music, and it's just like a lot of me. It's a little bit hard
It's
to
all
watch.
you.
I don't listen to my own albums.
Yeah.
So when this movie's out, I definitely don't think I'll be watching the movie anymore after we get through the festival thing, but I'm really glad that it exists.
But I would think it's going to reach people, don't you, Miranda?
Yeah,
It'll reach people in such a special way that it's worth it being so self-indulgent and for you being a little embarrassed, because I think the reach will be so poignant.
And I'm curious too, because the film talks so much about your relationship with your grandfather, who sounds like a really awesome person and like a very influential person in your life. I'm curious, when you're talking about the more artistic elements of the film, there's actually an actor who plays your grandfather and who's represented through this kind of like hazy lens, almost like memory thing. How did you talk about that, and what parts of the documentary you were going to represent in that more like metaphorical way, like the scene where your grandfather is like shaving your head?
I mean, that was kind of part of the hybrid thing we were talking about. Bob was talking about it being a hybrid as a narrative doc project. But at one point, before I got the diagnosis that my cancer had progressed to stage 4, this was going to be a full-length doc. And then once we realized we were on a little bit of a time crunch, we're like, well, maybe it's a short doc. And I think that if it had been a feature-length doc, there would have been a lot more of that surreal kind of retelling stuff. Bob, you can speak to that as well.
Yeah. Well, it was initially conceived as not a straight doc at all. It was there was a documentary component that then wove into this fictionalized component, and the idea was that you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference at first, and they would sort of become more clear as it went on. But as we were developing that, that's what's sort of excited about us is I know the wheel is amazing, and people tell you you don't need to reinvent the wheel, but I think you should try. And somebody put bearings in that wheel, somebody put a rubber on the outside of it. So, like, I always want to reinvent the wheel. And I look at it as like, if I fail at reinventing the wheel, hopefully I still have a wheel, which is great. And so this concept of making a fictional movie that was rooted in this reality of something that had real world potential of risk of life for Josh was sort of an interesting way to make an analogy and create this other component that hopefully would represent what Josh's creative and artistic output represent or is. Like he has a body of work that he puts out there, and we're trying to sort of echo that and put it in a visual form and to sort of repackage it in a way that's interesting. And so when we had this fictional component woven in there, and I was sort of spearheading the writing of that. And I was really trying to dive into his music and create a world, which was going to be it was going to be like a lo-fi sci-fi thing. It was going to be a world created through this pirate radio station that his grandfather started. And I don't want to drag you too deep into it, but I was really excited about it. At the time, Josh also had a very positive cancer prognosis. It was like almost all but assured to beat cancer. And so it was another way to sort of put a narrative thread into there to pull the movie forward and pull the information forward and pull the emotions forward, while Josh is on his cancer journey. But when the prognosis took a really dire turn, all of the stuff that wasn't set in reality seemed unnecessary. It seemed like a distraction almost, because when the prognosis took a dark turn, it was effectively a death sentence, is how I read that. I mean, the numbers were terrible, and I didn't really think that the viewer would tolerate abandoning now real world probable death from a documentary to go to a sort of whimsical narrative component, which it was initially conceived of as. But since we started filming before the prognosis took a dark turn, we started filming it as if it were going to go into the narrative. And I think that informed a lot of the visuals that you see. We filmed a few scenes that we scripted that we're going to throw to the narrative world. And so I think that that journey and just us starting to film and starting to talk to Josh, we built that set, and we sourced all that old vintage equipment, which was going to be a room in the fictional component that was going to be his grandfather's fictional pirate radio station that Josh discovered. And that was going to be the portal and the outlet to all the emotional arcs and the threads and the backstory of Josh himself, as well as Josh's relationship with his grandfather. It was all going to be accessed through these machines. And so that really gave us that helped us form the language on it. And I will point out too that you asked about Josh's grandfather. That's Dan Winters, the photographer, and well, he's like a really amazing world class photographer, and he
He's
came
like
up
one of the most famous
and played the
portrait
part, nailed
photographers.
it. And that was the show that I met Gene on. Gene had produced a show for National Geographic called Photographer, and the first episode was about Dan Winters. And so I met Dan and Gene 2 years ago prior at South by Southwest. So we kind of kept it in the family as much as we could.
Mhm.
That recounting of your grandfather, I think it was 11 days before he passed. I don't know if I was prepared for that this morning. I was watching pretty early this morning. It moved me in such a way because I think so many of us can see our own grandfathers in that, especially of his generation. Um, and and again, a moment of vulnerability for you to recount that. Was that helpful for you to have that moment on camera to share that to the broader world in a way?
Yeah, I think, um, I got to make kind of an inventory of a lot of things in my life while making the movie. I mean, we went through everything. I mean, we probably have 15 hours of interview or something of me. I mean, there was a lot. There were multiple days of me being interviewed. And so it was helpful. It was really heavy. I was already going through something difficult. And this movie was shot, 2 or 3 days at a time, months apart, and so it'd be like, okay, they're coming back in town. And there were times where it was like, oh my gosh, life is already so hard right now. Now I gotta go, talk about all the worst things that have ever happened for
It felt like a
2
heavy
days.
lift. Yeah.
But it really was, you know cathartic in a way, and it helped. Probably, uh, I haven't been to therapy. I probably should. I think it's probably, a form of that, some talk therapy we went through. Gene and Bob both were really great interviewers, and they came at it kind of from two different angles and were very thorough and thoughtful. And so I learned some stuff about myself and worked through a lot of old stuff. It was a lot of heavy lifting. I don't know how Bob feels about that, but it was yeah, it was definitely positive overall.
And you talk a lot in the film about how you feel about the concept of infinity.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that making movies, making music, is that like extending your infinity a little bit?
Um, I think at the beginning, that's kind of what I was worried about, right? Like when I first got sick, and my whole life, I've been like, how do I make whatever I do while I'm here last the longest? You know, what do I have to do so that the most generations will remember that I was here? And by the end of making the documentary and the end of being sick, I was like, I don't care. Like, I really, it doesn't matter. Like, it does, that is so not the point, of being here. It's just to, the biggest takeaway from being sick and making the movie and its whole period of time was just, you know, I want to spend as much time doing things that I love to do with people that I love. And that is the most simple. I can't even believe that's a lesson I needed to learn. But it's like now a lot of my choices are really just optimizing how do I do things I like to do with people I like? And how do I do less things I don't like doing with people I don't like? Because I feel like so much of life, you're like, I'm going to do this really hard thing and maybe I don't like who I'm around or whatever. But once that goes well, then I'll get to do this thing that I really want to do. And none of that's guaranteed. So I'm much more, I don't know, thoughtful with my time and choices these days.
I had this conversation with a friend, and we were saying that why is it the things that seem like they're harder to do and involve more sacrifice are somehow more valuable than the things that come easy to us that bring us joy? Like, why not choose that over that harder thing? Why do we put more value on that thing that's a harder uphill climb when we don't have to?
I don't know. I've put so much of my self-worth in being able to outwork everyone. My whole life, I was like, I want to be remembered for working hard. It's like, who cares? No one's going to remember that. And even if they do, like, what value does that really have? And I still do it. I still overwork myself.
I was going to say, I've seen your touring schedule. It's not like you're taking a break.
Yeah, I still have an issue with overworking myself. But I am at least aware that it doesn't matter as much as I thought, So I'm working towards,
There's a song in there somewhere if you haven't already written about that very thing. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Bob Ray, I was just curious your thoughts on the concept of infinity.
I liked your question to Josh about how it sort of extends your own uh, permanence in the mind of humanity, I guess. But as as artists, we create artifacts that represent the human condition, ideally, and we're contributing to the fabric of our culture. Whether it's the culture of Dallas or Austin or Texas, or just as humans or as musicians and filmmakers. And what we do is going to outlive us. I mean, that's just a fact. Um, what is interesting, I've found, I come from a narrative background, a fictional narrative filmmaking background. And in that world, you create your own characters. You can do anything you want with them. And there's very little responsibility to them other than true to your character so they're believable to the viewer. And when I started making documentaries and you start shaping a film, you, if you're not already aware, you find yourself very aware that these are real humans that need to live their life after your movie comes out and represents this portion of their life. And that obligation is pretty heavy. And so when you're representing another artist and you need to sort of convey what their artistry is about, but also be true to who they are, like that's quite a burden. But at the same time, I want to create art and entertainment and have this piece exist in a world that I feel proud about. And so it does kind of create this infinite, like our corporal bodies, we're going to pass, we're all going to pass, but the things that we do will outlive us. My dad was an iron worker. I drive by buildings that he worked on, that so he's like woven himself into this community here, and I hope to do so in a way that people are proud of and that will exist and people can look back on and go, what was going on in Texas at turn of the century. We can look at these, what was going on in the fringes of society, I should say, because that's where that's where my body of work lies. And I'm proud to do that. It's
On,
yeah,
Bob, on
I'm really
that
proud. I'm
note,
privileged that I get to do that.
Bob, on that note, I'm wondering, and I'd like to get Josh's take on this too, your thoughts on this state and the backing you've gotten, let's say, from Texas Monthly to distribute this film, to put it out there to a wider audience for this International Film Festival, DIF, Dallas International Film Festival, to showcase it here in Dallas and put the word out. What does that mean to you as an artist to know that this community is elevating and sharing work like yours?
Oh, well, it's amazing, like to be able to go somewhere and have an organization that's well established, well respected, celebrate your work. and pull an audience in to see what you've spent 2 years working on, like it's amazing. Texas Monthly is legendary. To have their backing and their support behind us. Like when Gene and I were talking about what we would want, where we might want this movie to land. If you look at a lot of short documentaries, they land at somewhere like the New York Times or the Los Angeles Times. They'll also land at Netflix and stuff like that. But if you look at a lot of these ones, they end up at these sort of publications. And we both were, when we were like, what would our pipe dream be? And Texas Monthly was on that list right out of the get go. And the more that we thought about it, the more we felt that was the perfect place to be. And Gene he knows how to produce, and this was mostly his doing, the nurturing of the relationship with Texas Monthly. But we didn't even set out to nurture relationships with the Los Angeles Times, which is where he lives now, or the New York Times, or any of these other well-established places. We felt that Texas Monthly was a perfect place. That we're three Texas boys right here. Josh's music well represents Texas. I kind of got the fringe of society part of Texas represented with my output down here. Gene's from Dallas. It couldn't have been a better match. And when we got that list going, we were like Texas Monthly at the top. And to have us end up there, like what an honor. And to have a great film festival like Dallas International screen our movie in Gene's hometown and Josh's hometown, and I'm driving up for it. Like it couldn't have been more perfect.
Yeah, I mean, we've submitted to multiple festivals, of course. That's part of what you do. But the way the timing worked out for the world premiere to be in Dallas is special to me. I was thinking about today when I was getting ready, and it's like there were some other things that could have lined up, and this is where we're able to premiere the movie, and I think it's awesome. Like we have so many people here that know us. I mean, Gene grew up here. He's been making movies out of Dallas, for a long time. I've lived my whole life here when I'm not on the road, and it's nice. Like the people who care about me most are here, so to be able to premiere the movie here and have them show up and see it is really special. And Diff is a Oscar qualifier for the first time this year for short film, so it'd be nice to get a jury vote in the hometown as well.
It sure would. Would it be nice too? I think this film will have an impact on people who are going through their own cancer journey. And so, can you let people know where you are in that journey, what your prognosis is now, and what you hope this film will do to speak to others who are going through it?
Sure. I have to go get scans every 2 months. I'm still being monitored, but right now I'm over a year and a half cancer free.
Congrats.
Awesome.
Thank you. 3.5 more years till I can say I'm in remission. But yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest thing, if you're going through your own cancer journey, just be an advocate for yourself. Listen to your body. Argue with your doctors. Ask questions. Don't when I say do your own research, don't necessarily believe everything you see on the internet. But I'm just
Stay
saying,
off the internet.
yeah, but definitely, like, if your body's telling you something, express that and really advocate for yourself, because so many people are going through this, and I'm so grateful to live in a city that has a lot of medical facilities. And I took that for granted when I first got sick. I'd never needed a hospital before. My appendix perforated while I was in Reno on the road. And I was in a city that didn't have a real trauma hospital. And I've taken it for granted that I live in a big city that has all these, these great hospitals. So yeah, if you're feeling like you're not feeling well or whatever, just go to the doctor, get checked out, get your colonoscopy when you're supposed to. That's my biggest takeaway really through all this. But I hope that the movie will help you feel like you're not going through it alone. There are so many people going through their own journey with cancer. I feel like almost everyone knows someone in their life or in their near family or whatever who've been through this, and that's why I make music, is to connect connect with people, and I hope that's what this documentary does as well.
I think you said you wrote 2 songs the day you were diagnosed. Did you say that in the documentary? Did I hear you say?
Yeah, that week I wrote the beginning. I wrote all of Thank You for Listening and the beginning of Ain't Dead Yet.
So we've heard both of those songs that you wrote on the day you were diagnosed.
Yeah, I wrote one. Thank You for Listening started the night before the doctor called, and then I finished them up that week. The day that I found out, I was actually flying to LA for Kimmel.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And
that's an emotional seesaw.
Yeah.
Like, let me go on national television and also get the worst news of my life.
I was, and I had to not tell the team because I knew it would throw off the vibe of the shoot. So like we did the Kimmel performance, and then afterward I had to tell my whole band and the team, my management, everyone was in town. It was a wild couple days in LA, and then I flew home and pretty much immediately found out I was going to go through treatment and have surgery, and it was a roller coaster for sure.
One of your lyrics really stuck out to me, and it was interesting because Bob Ray said he wasn't always one to listen to lyrics, and yet your lyrics for some reason like just kind of jump off, don't they? Like you hear them. You said, God made me with some crossed wires. Mm-hmm. And I sort of took from that God by design crosses wires. That's what makes us all different, right?
Yeah, I mean, for that line for me was really speaking on like mental health struggles that I've had through my adolescence and early adulthood, and just questioning all of that. And another big takeaway from getting sick was like I have dealt with mental illness, with suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety. I talk about that in some of my other songs. I have a song called Voices that's all about that. And getting cancer gave me the opportunity to fight for my own mortality. I had to, like at times when I thought I didn't want to be here anymore, that's in my hands. And when it was taken away from me, when that choice was no longer my choice, I was really struck by how hard I wanted to fight to be here. And that's really made a big impact on me and my own mental health journey, and just how I view mental illness, depression, suicidal ideation as a whole. It was, I had an opportunity to fight for myself, and it's changed my whole perspective.
I feel like Andrea Gibson had that same revelation during her cancer journey.
Really?
Which is captured in the documentary film that was nominated for an Academy Award. Meet Me in...
I'm so sorry, I'm not familiar.
The poet laureate, the spoken word poet, she had the same exact revelation.
Really?
Yeah. Meet Me in the Good Place.
Interesting. Yeah. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a big takeaway for me, for sure.
The documentary is called Thank You for Listening. I was wondering if you could play for us the song in the same name.
Sure. Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to all my sad songs. Thanks for loving me when I sing the words wrong. Makes the bad times not seem so long. Thanks for listening. I might have bit down on a dry fire, 'cause God made me with some crossed wires. Could have been singing in an angel's choir. Thanks for listening. Who'd have known I'd stick around this long by listening to the words in all my songs. If this were my final curtain call, I'd have no regrets at all. We were drinking in graveyards, sneaking off, kissing in our friends' cars, playing our guitars outside the bars. Thanks for listening. You might have seen me on your TV. They even let me play the Grand Ole Opry. If you'd have told me, I'd have never believed. Thanks for listening. Who'd have known I'd stick around this long by listening to the words in all my songs? If this were my final curtain call, I'd have no regrets at all. But most of all, thanks for listening to all my sad songs. Thanks for loving me when I sing the words wrong. Makes the bad times not seem so long. Thanks for listening.